Should you play a meta build? Well, first off, what is meta? For some people, meta means the most effective tactics available, while some others just cannot stand meta, meaning the most effective tactic available, as you can see here on the Reddit of League of Legends. And some people say that meta is a prefix of meta game, so therefore the meta game is essentially the tactics that are derived alongside the game. I'm not here to debate what the meta meaning is. I'm just trying to answer, should you play a popular build or not? Of course, I'm not going to give a yes or no answer. Instead, I will try to bring the upside and the downside of playing a meta build or a non-meta build. So let's start with the upsides of playing a meta build, or as I said, a popular build. So usually there are one or more guide available on either YouTube or Maxroll about that build. Let's say for example Lightning Arrow, there's a bunch of people talking about it. I know like Fubgun made a new guide on it on YouTube, or Crouching Tuna also made a video about it, and there's probably some other content creators who are talking about Lightning Arrow. So yeah, you can see there's a bunch of resources you can gather and find out what you actually want, which version you want to pick. So there's a plus side. So the path is already carved for you. Most of the time you will only have to follow it without any problem. And yeah, it will be easy to just follow along. There will be a lot of gear for that specific archetype because people might have like leftovers from upgrading their gear, or crafters may have made a bunch of those, so you can have access to them if you don't know how to craft it. There's also a lot of footage of the build in action. You can watch and learn from it. And min-maxing from that build probably has been done already, so you can see what to aim for. So another good point is that crafting the items required for the build can save you a lot of currency, or could make you a bunch of currency since those items are in demand. Okay, next, the downsides of playing a meta or popular build. There will be a lot of demand for the items it requires. A good example of that is that on day 1 of Trial of the Ancestors League, I crafted this bow you can see on the screen. I put it up for 12 divines, and you have to remember this was 6 hours into the league, and it was pretty much the best bow at that time. So what happens that literally every bow player messaged me trying to offer me some things left and right, because no one had like, or barely anyone had 12 divines at that time. So they were trying to get a deal with this, trying to trade a bunch of random stuff to get the bow. If you're playing a meta build, you will be competing with a lot of people who are trying to buy the same items. If you don't know how to craft the items for the build itself, you will be dependent on the market, and what will happen is that their price will probably be higher than other stuff. This could be a huge downside to it, and you may even be blocked into your progress with the build. Keep that in mind. The price of the items of those builds in general will be higher than random builds. If it requires unique, you may be out of the budget to actually buy them. For example, Forbidden Flesh and Forbidden Flame. There might be really a few of them, and when they come up on the trade website, the people who have the most currency will insta grab them, no matter what the price is. Another thing that could be annoying when playing a meta build is that if you compare yourself to the like super high-end builds or streamers, you could feel like you're pretty weak or left behind, as they usually play way more than you and actually know more about the game. So this could be discouraging. Right, now let's talk about the upside of playing a non-meta build or non-popular build. There's a high chance that the uniques required for that build could be super cheap, and especially like close to perfect or perfect items, like perfect of those uniques may be super cheap, so this is a huge plus. Items in general for that build will probably be cheaper since no one is using them aside of like your super niche build. High level and quality of a gem for that build may be really cheap. So for example, you're playing a transfigured gem that no one is playing. If you look at PoE Ninja and no one is playing that gem, well, of course the trait will reflect that, and those gems will be extremely cheap. So you can have access to 2120 gems of a transfigured gems, or have a bunch of 2020 be ready for a volleying, so you can actually get your 2120. Usually it's super satisfying to play the build as you are in Uncharted territory, because maybe there's a super quick guide on it and that's the only information you have about the build, or you're straight up the creator of that build. So it's a cool way to experience Path of Exile. Now for the downside of playing a non-meta or popular build. You probably have fewer resources on that build or guide on it. So on average, you will have to know more about Path of Exile than just straight up following a guide. You will have to fix your problem yourself. But I would say sometimes it could be a plus because personally I like solving problems. Yeah, as I said, it's a downside because you have to and sometimes you don't want to do this. It might be hard to know what is the next upgrade without being super good at POB, because sometimes an item may look better but you're not sure, so you have to check in POB and stuff like that. While on a meta build, you really know what's worth more and what are the best weight of stuff. So that's a downside. Another downside is that it might look good and be good in theory, but once you get to play the build, it's actually clunky or worse than what it looked like on paper. Another downside is that it probably requires you to know a bit about crafting, as some of the items you might need for the build may not even be on the trade website, so you probably have to craft them yourself. Again, for some people, this is actually a plus because if you like finding a solution to a problem via an item and you know how to craft it, it could be cool. But for most people, I would say it's a downside. And another downside, you probably cannot sell your old gear back to other players, as they may have only a few people playing that build. With all that being said, I would say on average, playing a meta build will be easier and probably get you further. But some people like the challenge of playing non-meta build or having access to better gear at a cheaper cost. So yeah, there are some pluses on both sides as I listed. And now that you have all this information, you can actually make an idea for yourself and pick what fits you best. For some people, it may be better to pick a meta build, and from some others, it may be better to pick a non-meta build. You can always start with a meta build and then on your second character play a non-meta build. I hope with all this information you can come up with the best solution for yourself. If this was helpful, consider subscribing to the channel, and as always, take care guys.